They told her never to answer the voice coming from upstairs. But on the third night in the old cottage, when she heard her dead mother whispering her name through the bedroom door, Eleanor made the mistake no one in Ashcombe had survived before, and by dawn, one of them would be gone. The cottage stood alone on the far edge of the moor, as though the world had abandoned it decades ago and never dared return. It was a narrow, weather-beaten stone house with a sagging slate roof, two crooked chimneys, and windows so clouded by age they looked blind. The wind worried at its walls day and night, carrying the scent of wet earth, peat smoke, and something older, something stale and hidden. To anyone else, it would have seemed a miserable place. To Eleanor Harrow, it looked like escape. She arrived in late October, just as the last of the evening light was fading into the Yorkshire hills. Her train from London had been delayed twice. The taxi driver had spoken scarcely a word, and by the time she stood at the beginning of the overgrown footpath leading to the cottage, a cold drizzle had begun to settle over the moor like a veil. She pulled her coat tighter around herself and stared at the house. This was all her grandmother had left her. No letter, no explanation, no sentimental keepsake. Just a solicitor's call 2 weeks after the funeral, informing her that Bracken Hollow Cottage, situated just outside the village of Ashcombe, now belonged to her. Eleanor had almost laughed when she first heard it. Her grandmother, Agnes, had never been affectionate. She had been stern, private, and so sparing with her words that even family gatherings felt like formal occasions. As a child, Eleanor had visited the cottage only twice, and each memory remained strangely blurred. Rain against the windows, a fire burning low, and the overwhelming feeling that one should never wander the corridors alone after dark. Yet London had become unbearable after her mother's death. Every pavement, every shopfront, every ordinary street corner carried a memory she had not asked to keep. Her mother's favorite florist, the bakery where they bought cinnamon buns on Sundays, the bench in Regent's Park where they sat the afternoon before the diagnosis. Grief had transformed the city into a map of ambushes. So when the solicitor called, Eleanor did what grieving people often do when they can no longer bear the life they know. She ran. The taxi driver unloaded her suitcase at the lane and glanced uneasily towards the distant outline of the cottage. "That's far enough," he said. Eleanor frowned. "It's another 200 yards. "Aye," he muttered, "and I've no intention of driving closer after sunset." She gave a faint smile, trying to soften the awkwardness. "Local superstition?" The man didn't smile back. "Local experience." Before she could ask what that meant, he climbed back into the cab and drove away, the red taillights vanishing into the mist. Left alone, Eleanor dragged her suitcase down the footpath. The moor stretched around her in every direction, vast, empty, and eerily still. Tufts of heather bent in the wind, the ground squelched underfoot. Somewhere far off, a bird cried out, thin and lonely. When she reached the front door, she hesitated. The old brass key, tarnished and cold, turned with surprising ease. The cottage opened with a long, groaning sigh. Inside, the air was stale with dust, old wood, and lavender that had long since lost its sweetness. Faded wallpaper peeled at the corners, a narrow staircase climbed into shadow. To the right, a small sitting room held a worn armchair, a cracked stone hearth, and a brass mantel clock stopped at precisely 17 minutes past 3. The sight of it stirred something unpleasant in her, though she couldn't have said why. She set down her bags and lit the oil lamp left on the sideboard. Warm amber light spilled through the room, softening the sharp edges of neglect. For the first time in months, the silence felt almost merciful. That feeling did not last. The first night passed with only the usual discomforts of an unfamiliar house. The pipes clanked, the floorboards creaked, wind hissed under the eaves like whispered conversation. Eleanor told told herself it was only the character of an old cottage, and eventually drifted into a shallow, uneasy sleep. At 3:17 a.m., she awoke. Her room was freezing, not merely cold, but unnaturally so, as though a window had been thrown open in the dead of winter. Her breath fogged faintly in the darkness. She lay perfectly still, disoriented, listening. Then she heard it, a single footstep below, slow, deliberate, another, and another. The sound moved across the sitting room floorboards with the unmistakable rhythm of someone pacing in the dark. Eleanor sat up sharply. Her first instinct was practicality. Old house, settling timbers, wind pressure, perhaps a branch against the wall. Then the footsteps stopped. A long pause followed, and from downstairs came the distinct creak of the armchair by the fire, as if someone had just sat down. Every muscle in her body tightened. She reached for her phone on the bedside table. No signal. Of course there wasn't. Swallowing hard, she slipped from bed, found the torch in her bag, and opened the bedroom door. The landing was empty. The staircase groaned beneath her as she descended, the torch beam jittering over framed sketches of the moor, a narrow house table, and the half-open sitting room door. She was certain she had closed it. Pushing it wider, she swept the light across the room. Nothing. No intruder, no open window, no sign of disturbance. Yet when the beam landed on the armchair, her breath caught. The cushion held a fresh indentation. Someone or something had been sitting there moments before. She stood frozen, pulse hammering in her throat. "Hello?" she called, and hated how thin her voice sounded. No answer, only the wind beyond the walls. By morning, she had nearly convinced herself she'd imagined it. Grief did peculiar things to the mind. Sleeplessness did worse. Still, when she walked into Ashcombe the next day for provisions, she found herself glancing over her shoulder more than once. The village was small and old-fashioned, built of the same weathered stone as the cottage. There was a church, a pub called the Hare and Lantern, a grocer's shop whose bell jingled sharply when she entered. The woman behind the counter, a stout, silver-haired lady with keen eyes, looked up from a basket of apples. "You're Agnes Harrow's granddaughter." It wasn't a question. Eleanor managed a polite smile. "I am. And you're staying at Bracken Hollow." Again, not a question. "Yes." The woman's expression changed, becoming unreadable. "Staying long?" "I'm not sure yet." The woman nodded as if that answer mattered. When Eleanor paid for bread, tea, and tinned soup, the woman placed the change carefully in her hand and said, in a voice too quiet for casual conversation, "If you hear knocking after dark, don't answer it." Eleanor stared. "I beg your pardon?" But the woman had already turned to another customer. The conversation abruptly closed. That night, Eleanor bolted the door. At 3:17 a.m., the footsteps returned. This time there were more of them, not pacing now, but moving slowly from room to room downstairs, as though someone unfamiliar with the layout was exploring by touch. The sitting room, the hall, the kitchen, then back again. Eleanor stayed in bed, gripping the blankets so tightly her fingers ached. The sounds continued for nearly 10 minutes. Then came the knock. 3 sharp raps at her bedroom door. She nearly cried out. The knocking was soft at first, almost courteous. Knock, knock, knock. A pause. Then again. Knock, knock, knock. She stared at the door, unable to move. The brass handle did not turn, no shadow appeared beneath the gap, yet the knocking continued, measured and patient, as though whatever stood outside knew she was awake and was willing to wait. Finally, just before dawn, it stopped. When she opened the door in the morning, there was nothing there. Nothing except a faint line of muddy footprints leading down the corridor, bare feet, small and narrow, like a girl's. They vanished halfway to the stairs. Eleanor returned to the village with the urgency of someone trying not to panic. This time she went straight to the churchyard, where she found Mr. Wilkes trimming rose bushes beneath a row of old gravestones. He was tall and stooped, with wind-burnished skin and the kind of calm expression that made people trust him before he'd spoken a word. When she mentioned Brackenhollow Cottage, his shears fell silent. "So," he said quietly, "it's begun." The matter-of-fact tone unsettled her more than if he'd laughed. "I heard footsteps and knocking. There were bare footprints upstairs this morning." Mr. Wilkes regarded her for a long moment, then gestured towards a bench beneath a yew tree. "You'd best sit down." The story he told was older than Eleanor had expected, yet sharper in its details than any village legend ought to be. In March of 1968, her Aunt Margaret vanished from the cottage. She was 16, bright, stubborn, clever.